Lauren Boebert made a little bit of time in her address over the holidays to once again launch homophobic attacks against Pete Buttigieg. And I will say, as I have always said, I am not a fan of Pete Buttigieg. I have no interest in his presidential aspirations, and I don't think that he was qualified for the position that he has. However, those are, I think, fair, substantive critiques. If you'd like an example of one that is neither of those things, let's take a look at this. And I will remind you, this is a sitting congresswoman.
Meanwhile, you have the Secretary of Transportation, good old Mayor Pete. He wasn't even put in charge of the supply chain crisis. No, someone else was tapped for that because Mayor Pete is still at home trying to figure out how to chest feed. Somebody ought to tell him so he can get back to work.
Right.
That was fun. Somebody ought to tell him what? Someone ought to tell him so he can get back to work. What? Tell him how to chest feed? Tell him, was she saying that he can't? That, her whole homophobic thing about, gay parents aren't really parents? She didn't even complete the thought. She doesn't even know what she's doing. She's really bad at this. But anyway, the overall point was, good old Mayor Pete is wasting our time by taking paternity leave, because I will remind you, and the reason that I want to focus on these is paternity leave, maternity leave, all of this is good for workers, so they hate it. They despise it, and they want you to turn against it too, okay? They cannot stand against the population pushing for the leave that they deserve, so they have to get you to opt out. And so that attack has been coming from so many different directions. So it might be the Lauren Boeberts, it might be the, oh my God, I'm forgetting it, Joe Rogan. I forgot for a second what his name was. That was a good moment. Joe Rogan trying to make you feel terrible for taking the leave that you deserve, that you would get in virtually any other country around the world. Do not fall for the con. But the way in this case that she's pushing for it is with homophobic attacks against Pete Buttigieg. Good old Pete Buttigieg. And even that line doesn't make any sense. What history does she have with Pete Buttigieg? The right has barely any history with Pete Buttigieg. Now, I, as a progressive, I could say good old Pete Buttigieg because we've been through these different cycles through the primary with him and dealing with all of his stuff. She doesn't have that. She just throws out words and has no idea what they actually mean or where they should be deployed. But the attack is that he can't chest feed. And I will say this on the chest feeding. I looked this up. It is apparently a regional thing, whether you say chest feed or breastfeed. And I will acknowledge that absent upbringing, neither of those makes more sense than the other. But as a person who's raised in a part of the country that says breastfeed, when you say chest feed, it sounds insane. That's a really weird thing to say. It's not wrong, but it feels wrong. Anyway, here's the thing, Lauren Boebert. Whether he can chest feed or not, he gets to spend time with the kid that he and his husband adopted. They get to do that. Families come in many different forms, okay? Some of them adopt children. Some give birth in trucks. You still get to be a parent regardless, okay? Some people have an old school, classic American mom and dad. Some have a mom who's a horrendous Islamophobe and a dad who pulled his dick out in a bowling alley. So families, again, come in all different forms. That doesn't mean that one is better than the other, although in the two examples I gave, the first one is definitely better than the second one. The second one's just awful. This kid's going to grow up all sorts of messed up. And you get to take that time, whether you're straight or gay, cis or trans or whatever the hell you want, you deserve it, okay? Now, what's very interesting about this, and we've showed a couple different videos of her, is that there was pushback against several of her comments. Against the Islamophobic comments and also against the homophobic comments. She apologized for the Islamophobic comments. She did not apologize for the homophobic comments. And she did not return Insider's request for comment just yesterday. And so far, her apology for what she said about Ilhan Omar was 3 days ago. And that's it. Nothing else has happened since then. So why is that? Does she believe that what she said wasn't as bad? Does she believe that, I guess, you're just allowed again to make casual homophobic comments? I guess. I mean, that's what it's looking like. And by the way, I haven't seen House Democratic leadership sticking up for him. Now, to be fair, he's not in the House, and Ilhan Omar is. But then shouldn't the White House be sticking up? I don't know, it's just very weird when, like, if we're going to expect some sort of base level of seriousness and maturity from our representatives, then I feel like we should apply that to Muslim Americans and members of the LGBTQ community. Does that seem unfair? I don't know. I think that that's a good idea.